The fluorescent lights of Riverside Galleria burned Rebecca's eyes as she stood outside the Cartier store, one hand pressed against her 8-month belly, the other clutching her phone with whitening knuckles. Marcus hadn't answered in 45 minutes. 45 minutes since he'd told her to wait here while he handled something important in the parking garage. The November air conditioning cut through her maternity dress like ice water. She'd asked him 3 times if they could just go home. The baby was kicking hard, her back ached, and her swollen feet screamed inside the designer heels Marcus insisted she were to represent the Chen family appropriately. Marcus Chen, CEO of Chen Innovations, a tech company worth $60 million that he'd built from nothing. He reminded her of that fact daily, sometimes hourly, especially now that she'd let herself go during the pregnancy. Never mind that she was carrying his daughter. Never mind that Dr. Morrison had warned her about stress and overexertion. Rebecca dialed again. Straight to voicemail. A security guard approached, young and uncomfortable. "Ma'am, we're closing in 15 minutes. Do you need help getting to your vehicle?" "My husband is coming back," she said, hearing the uncertainty in her own voice. "He just had to get something from the car." The guard glanced at his watch with practiced sympathy. "Of course, ma'am. But just so you know, the garage closes at 9 sharp, and it's 8:45 now." After he walked away, Rebecca lowered herself onto the nearby bench with the ungraceful desperation of someone very pregnant and very tired. Around her, the mall was emptying. Shop gates were rolling down with metallic finality. A cleaning crew had started at the far end of the corridor, their industrial buffer creating echoes that made the vast space feel even more hollow. She thought about calling her best friend Diane, but shame stopped her. This was the 3rd time this month Marcus had done something like this. The 3rd time he'd brought her somewhere and then disappeared, leaving her to manage alone despite her obvious condition. Her phone buzzed. Finally. But it wasn't Marcus. "Unknown number, stop calling him. He's with me now. We're at the Meridian Hotel. You know, where successful people stay. Not shopping malls where fat pregnant women waddle around." Attached was a photo. Marcus and a woman Rebecca recognized from his office Christmas party. Sophia Loren, the new marketing director he'd hired 6 months ago. 26 years old, blonde, built like someone who'd never had to choose between breathing and bending over to tie her shoes. In the photo, they were in a hotel room. Sophia wore Marcus's shirt. His hand was on her waist, possessive and casual in a way he hadn't touched Rebecca in months. The phone buzzed again. "Sophia, he said to tell you to catch an Uber home. He'll be staying here tonight. Business meetings in the morning. Oh, and he mentioned you should probably start looking for your own place. Lawyers will be in touch." Rebecca's hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. The baby kicked frantically, as if sensing her mother's distress. She pressed her palm against the movement, trying to calm both of them, but her heart was racing and her vision was blurring and somewhere deep in her chest something was breaking apart. The lights in the Cartier store went dark. Then the store next to it. One by one, the entire wing was going black. "Ma'am?" The security guard was back, more insistent now. "I really need you to head to an exit. We're closing." "I don't have a car," Rebecca heard herself say. "My husband drove us here. Can you call someone? A friend, family member?" Family. The word landed like a stone in her stomach. Rebecca thought of her mother, Charlotte Morrison, who'd died 8 months ago. The grief was still so raw that sometimes she forgot for whole minutes that her mother was gone, and then the remembering would hit her all over again like a fresh wound. There had been a lawyer's letter about Charlotte's estate. Rebecca remembered it arriving during those first terrible weeks after the funeral, but she'd been too devastated to open it. Too overwhelmed by grief and mourning sickness and Marcus's increasing coldness to deal with paperwork about her mother's affairs. The letter was probably still sitting in the junk drawer at the house. The house Marcus apparently wanted her to move out of. "Ma'am, I can call you a taxi if you need." Rebecca nodded numbly. "Yes. Thank you." As she waited by the mall's main entrance, watching the last employees trickle out to their cars, Rebecca pulled up her banking app. The joint account she shared with Marcus showed a balance of $847. Last week it had been $12,000. He'd transferred it. Of course he had. Her personal checking account, the one from before they married, held $234. She was 8 months pregnant, effectively homeless, and had less than $1,100 to her name. The taxi arrived, a beat-up Honda with a driver who looked at her with the weary sympathy of someone who'd seen too much human misery. She gave him her address, Marcus's address, technically, since his name was the only one on the deed. "You okay, miss?" the driver asked as they pulled away from Riverside Galleria's gleaming facade. "You need me to take you to a hospital instead?" "No," Rebecca managed. "I'm fine." But she wasn't fine. She was the opposite of fine. She was being discarded like trash by a man who'd promised to love her forever. She was about to be a single mother with no job, no savings, and no family. Except, there was the letter. When the taxi pulled up to the 3-story colonial that Marcus was so proud of, Rebecca saw immediately that the locks had been changed. A neat piece of paper was taped to the door, property secured by order of owner. No trespassing. "That's not legal," Rebecca said to no one in particular. "You can't just lock someone out of their own home." But it wasn't her home. She'd never been on the deed. Marcus had insisted on keeping it in his name for tax purposes and liability protection. She'd trusted him. God, she'd been so stupid. The taxi driver was watching her in the rearview mirror. "You got somewhere else to go?" Rebecca thought about hotels. Even cheap ones would burn through her money in days. She thought about shelters, but the idea of walking into one of those places, pregnant, privileged Rebecca Morrison Chen who'd never wanted for anything, felt impossible. Then she remembered Diane lived 20 minutes away. "Yes," she said, giving him the new address. "Thank you." Diane answered the door in pajamas, took one look at Rebecca's face, and pulled her inside without a single question. It was only after Rebecca had cried herself hoarse, after Diane had made her tea and tucked her into the guest room, after the baby had finally stopped kicking and settled into restless sleep, that Rebecca remembered the letter again. "Diane," she called out softly. "Do you still have your mother's paperwork? From when she passed?" Diane appeared in the doorway. "Yeah, why?" "There was a letter. About my mom's estate. I never opened it." Rebecca felt tears threatening again. "I need to call that lawyer. I need to know if she left me anything. Even a little money would help right now." "Where's the letter?" "In my house. The house I can't get into." Diane's expression turned fierce. "Give me the address of that lawyer's office. I'll call first thing tomorrow morning and explain the situation. They'll have copies of everything." The next morning, Rebecca woke to Diane shaking her shoulder gently. "Becca." The lawyer's office called back. "They want to see you. Today. They said it's urgent." Peterson and Harrison Associates occupied the entire 15th floor of the Apex Tower downtown. The receptionist's eyes widened when Rebecca gave her name, and within seconds she was being ushered into a conference room that screamed old money and serious power. Robert Peterson was 70 if he was a day, with sharp blue eyes and a handshake that radiated competence. "Mrs. Chen. Or do you prefer Morrison?" "Morrison," Rebecca said immediately. "I'm getting divorced." "I see." He didn't look surprised. "Well, Ms. Morrison, I'm glad you finally came in. We've been trying to reach you for 8 months. I'm sorry. My mother's death was. I couldn't handle much of anything. I understand. And I'm deeply sorry for your loss. Charlotte Morrison was an extraordinary woman." He opened a leather folder. "I've been your family's attorney for 40 years. I handled your mother's affairs, and before that, your grandfather's." Rebecca nodded, confused about where this was going. "Your mother left very specific instructions about when and how you were to receive information about your inheritance. Peterson pulled out several documents. She wanted you to have time to grieve before being overwhelmed with business matters. However, given your current circumstances, which I understand include a difficult divorce and advanced pregnancy, I believe we need to accelerate the timeline. Mr. Peterson, I appreciate this, but my mother lived modestly. She was a homemaker after my father died. Whatever she left me, I'm sure it's not much, but I'm grateful for anything, Ms. Morrison, he interrupted gently. Your mother was Charlotte Morrison, daughter of Harold Morrison, sole heir to Morrison Properties. The name meant nothing to Rebecca. I don't understand. Peterson turned his laptop toward her. On the screen was a corporate website, Morrison Properties, building America's retail future since 1952. Morrison Properties owns and operates 47 shopping centers across the United States, Peterson explained, including Riverside Galleria, where I understand you were abandoned last night. Rebecca's mind went blank. That's not possible. Your grandfather, Harold Morrison, built his first shopping center in 1952. By the time he died in 1985, he owned 12. Your mother inherited everything. She spent the next 40 years expanding the portfolio strategically, carefully, brilliantly. Peterson's voice carried deep respect. Charlotte Morrison was worth $12.4 billion when she passed. And she left every penny of it to you. The room spun. Rebecca gripped the edge of the conference table. Billion? You said billion? $12.4 billion, yes. The portfolio includes the shopping centers, but also the land they sit on, several office complexes, residential developments, and a venture capital fund that's performed exceptionally well. He slid a document across the table. This is a summary. The full accounting runs to several hundred pages. Rebecca stared at numbers that made no sense. Properties worth hundreds of millions. Investment accounts in the 9 figures. Cash reserves that could buy entire companies. Why didn't she tell me? The question came out as a whisper. Why did we live in that small house? Why did she let me think we were just ordinary? Because she wanted you to marry for love, Peterson said simply. She wanted you to know who truly valued you versus who valued your money. She made me promise not to tell you about your inheritance until after you were married. He paused. She also made me promise to tell you immediately if you were ever in danger or distress. Your situation with Mr. Chen qualifies. Rebecca thought about Marcus. About how he'd swept her off her feet 3 years ago with his confidence and ambition. About how he'd seemed to love her for herself, not her money, because as far as he knew, she had no money. She knew, Rebecca said slowly. My mother knew Marcus would do this. She suspected you might marry someone like Mr. Chen. Ambitious men often reveal their true nature once they feel secure. Peterson's expression was carefully neutral. Your mother wanted you to have the tools to protect yourself when that happened. Does Marcus know about the inheritance? No one knows except myself, my partner, and now you. Morrison Properties is structured through several holding companies. The connection to your mother isn't public knowledge. He leaned forward. Which gives you significant advantages in your divorce proceedings, Ms. Morrison. Mr. Chen thinks he's divorcing a pregnant housewife with no resources. He has no idea what's actually coming. Rebecca felt something cold and sharp crystallize in her chest. Marcus had abandoned her at a mall. Her mother's mall. He'd sent his mistress to mock her via text message. He'd locked her out of her home and drained their bank accounts. And he had no idea that she could buy his entire company before lunch and still have billions left over. Mr. Peterson, she said quietly. I want to see everything. Every property, every account, every asset. And then I want to show Marcus Chen exactly what happens when you underestimate a Morrison woman. The lawyer smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. Charlotte told me you'd say something like that eventually. She'd be very proud. Over the next week, Rebecca's education proceeded at a breakneck pace. She met with financial advisors, property managers, investment specialists, and a small army of people who'd been quietly managing her mother's empire for decades. Morrison Properties wasn't just big, it was a juggernaut. The 47 shopping centers included some of the most profitable retail destinations in America. Riverside Galleria alone generated $180 million annually in rent and fees. Her mother had been a genius at identifying undervalued properties in growing markets. She'd bought land cheaply, developed it carefully, and held it long enough to watch communities build up around her shopping centers. The portfolio had compounded over 40 years into something extraordinary. Your mother was very particular about tenants, explained Sarah Chen, the portfolio director. No relation to Marcus, thankfully. She wanted shopping centers that served real communities, not just luxury brands. Family restaurants, practical clothing stores, entertainment for children. She believed in accessible retail. Rebecca toured Riverside Galleria on a Wednesday afternoon, walking through the wide corridors where she'd been abandoned 9 days ago. The security guard who'd helped her recognized her immediately and approached with concern. "Ma'am. Are you all right? I've been worried. Did you get home okay that night?" "I did, thank you." Rebecca smiled at him. "What's your name?" "Trevor, ma'am." "Trevor Richardson." "Trevor, I'm Rebecca Morrison. I own this mall." His eyes widened. You're Charlotte Morrison's daughter? You knew my mother?" Everyone knew Ms. Morrison. She visited every property twice a year, learned all our names, asked about our families. His voice was thick with emotion. "She gave me a scholarship for my daughter's college tuition. For years, full ride. Changed our lives." Rebecca felt tears prick her eyes. This was her mother's legacy. Not just buildings and profit margins, but real impact on real people. "Trevor, I'm going to need your help with something," she said. "In about 2 weeks, there's going to be an event here at the mall. My ex-husband's company is hosting a product launch. I need you to make sure security is tight that day." Trevor straightened. "Anything you need, Ms. Morrison." Marcus Chen paced his office, phone pressed to his ear, listening to his CFO deliver increasingly bad news. "I don't understand," he interrupted. "Morrison Properties owns the venue?" "Since when?" "Since 1987, apparently," his CFO replied. "They've owned Riverside Galleria the entire time. We just never knew because the ownership is buried in holding companies." "And they're tripling our rental fee for the product launch?" "Yes. Retroactively applied to our contract. Either we pay or we cancel, and canceling 3 days before the event would be a PR disaster." Marcus slammed his hand on his desk. The product launch was crucial. 6 months of planning, $4 million in development costs, advance coverage from major tech publications. Chen Innovations couldn't afford to cancel. "Fine. Pay it. But find out who owns Morrison Properties. I want to speak to someone about this." After hanging up, Marcus turned to find Sophia draped across his office couch, scrolling through her phone. "Problem?" she asked without looking up. "The venue for the launch is gouging us. Property owner playing games. Can't you just have your wife's family connections fix it?" "Oh wait." Sophia smiled sharply. "You got rid of her. Guess you'll have to solve your own problems now." Marcus ignored the jab. Rebecca had been a dead weight anyway. Always tired, always complaining about pregnancy symptoms, always wanting him to slow down and spend time at home. Sophia understood his ambition. She wanted the same things he wanted: success, recognition, power. "Have you heard from her?" he asked. "Rebecca? Why would I hear from your pregnant ex-wife?" "Because you sent her that text. From the hotel." Sophia shrugged. She deserved to know the truth. "You were never going to tell her yourself." That was true. Marcus had been planning to ease into the divorce conversation, maybe wait until after the baby was born. But then Sophia had gotten impatient, and honestly, it was better this way. Clean break. No drawn-out negotiations. His lawyer had assured him the prenup was airtight. Rebecca would get minimal spousal support, no claim to Chen Innovations, and standard custody arrangements. He'd be free within 6 months. The product launch would cement his reputation as a visionary. Sophia would be by his side as his new partner. Everything was falling into place. His assistant buzzed. "Mr. Chen, there's someone from Morrison Properties here to see you. About the venue contract. Send them in." Rebecca Morrison walked into his office like she owned the place. Which, Marcus realized with growing horror, she technically did. She owned the building Chen Innovations leased. She owned Riverside Galleria. She apparently owned half of commercial real estate in the state. She'd lost the pregnancy weight. Her hair was styled professionally. She wore a navy suit that probably cost more than his car and carried herself with the kind of quiet authority that comes from real power, not borrowed confidence. "Hello, Marcus," she said calmly. "Rebecca. You look different. I had a baby. Your daughter, actually. 3 weeks ago. Her name is Charlotte, after my mother." Rebecca settled into the chair across from his desk without being invited. "You weren't there, of course. Too busy with Sophia." Marcus felt his face flush. "Look, I know how this looks, do you?" Rebecca's voice was pleasant, conversational. "Do you know how it looks when a CEO abandons his 8 months pregnant wife at a shopping mall? When he drains their joint bank account and locks her out of their home? When his mistress sends mocking text messages about fat pregnant women? I'm sorry. I handled things poorly. You handled things criminally. But we'll get to that." Rebecca crossed her legs. "I'm here about your product launch. If this is about the rental fee increase, the rental fee increase is fair market value. You've been getting a discount for 2 years because I didn't know I owned the building." She pulled out her phone, tapping a few times. "But I'm willing to waive the increase entirely." Marcus sat up straighter. "Really? In exchange for something very simple. I want you to invite me to the launch event. You want to come to my product launch. I want you to publicly thank me during your speech. I want you to acknowledge the mother of your child and the woman you abandoned. I want everyone in that room to know exactly what kind of man you are." Rebecca's smile never wavered. "And if you refuse, I'll cancel your lease on this office space, triple your venue rental, and make sure every tech publication knows that Marcus Chen treats pregnant women like garbage." "You can't do that." "Marcus, I own 47 shopping centers and 12 office buildings. I absolutely can do that." She stood, smoothing her skirt. "You have 24 hours to decide. Invite me to the launch and apologize publicly, or watch your company's reputation burn." After she left, Marcus sat frozen at his desk. Sophia emerged from where she'd been listening in his private bathroom. "She's bluffing," Sophia said. "No one has that kind of power." But Marcus had already Googled Morrison Properties. Already seen the corporate structure, the asset listings, the mind-boggling scope of what Rebecca had inherited. He'd divorced a billionaire. He'd abandoned the mother of his child at a mall she owned. He'd sent her cruel texts and locked her out while she was pregnant. And now she was coming for him. The product launch took place on a Thursday evening. Riverside Galleria's central atrium had been transformed into a high-tech showcase, with dramatic lighting and station displays of Chen Innovations' new software platform. 200 people filled the space: investors, journalists, industry leaders, and the kind of social climbers who attended every significant tech event. Sophia worked the room in a dress that cost more than most people's rent, playing the role of supportive girlfriend with practiced ease. Marcus stood near the stage, running through his speech notes, trying to control the anxiety crawling up his spine. Rebecca had confirmed she would attend. He'd agreed to acknowledge her, though his lawyer had carefully worded the statement to minimize damage. The lights dimmed. Marcus took the stage. His presentation was flawless. 15 minutes of polished delivery about innovation and disruption and the future of enterprise software. The audience was engaged, nodding, some taking notes. Then came the acknowledgments. "Before I conclude," Marcus said, reading from his script, "I want to thank everyone who made this evening possible, including the venue management at Riverside Galleria. I'd also like to acknowledge Rebecca Morrison, the mother of my daughter, for her support during the development of this product." Tepid applause. Rebecca wasn't even in the room yet, as far as he could see. Then the main lights came up, and Rebecca walked into the atrium from the north entrance. Not alone. She was accompanied by Robert Peterson, Sarah Chen, the portfolio director, and a woman Marcus recognized as the CEO of Tech Vision, the venture capital firm that had once considered investing in Chen Innovations. Rebecca climbed the stage stairs with easy confidence. Marcus's microphone went dead. "Thank you, Marcus," Rebecca said into a microphone that had appeared in her hand. That was a lovely acknowledgement. Very sincere. Nervous laughter from the audience. "I appreciate you inviting me to this event at Riverside Galleria, a property I own through Morrison Properties, the company my mother built." Rebecca's voice carried clearly through the atrium. "I thought since we're all here, I should share some information that might interest potential investors." Marcus tried to speak, but his microphone was still dead. 3 weeks ago, I gave birth to Charlotte Morrison Chen. A beautiful baby girl. Her father, Marcus Chen, was not present for her birth. He was actually at the Meridian Hotel with his marketing director, Sophia Loran. Rebecca gestured toward Sophia, who'd gone white. "He'd abandoned me at this mall while I was 8 months pregnant. Left me stranded, actually. Changed the locks on our home, drained our bank accounts, and had his girlfriend send me mocking text messages." The crowd's murmur was building. Phones were coming out, recording. "Now, I'm not here for sympathy," Rebecca continued. "I'm here because I believe in transparency. Marcus Chen is asking you to invest in his company, to trust his leadership, to believe in his vision. But I think you should know that this is a man who uses company funds for personal expenses, who commits domestic financial abuse, and who violates basic human decency. That's slander." Marcus finally got his microphone working. "You can't prove, I can prove all of it." Rebecca nodded to Peterson, who approached with a folder. "I have security footage from this mall showing you abandoning me. I have text messages from Ms. Loran. I have bank records showing you draining joint accounts. I have hotel receipts for your affair charged to Chen Innovations corporate cards." She paused. "Should I continue?" Marcus felt the room turning against him. Investors were whispering. Journalists were typing frantically. "But here's the truly interesting part," Rebecca said. "Morrison Properties owns not just this mall, but also the office building where Chen Innovations leases space. And as of this morning, we've acquired a 43% stake in Chen Innovations through various investment vehicles." The room erupted. Marcus's vision tunneled. 43%, Rebecca repeated. "Not quite controlling interest, but close. And you know what I plan to do with that stake?" She smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Marcus had ever seen. "I plan to vote against every single decision you try to make. I plan to audit every expense report. I plan to make your life as a CEO so difficult that you'll wish you'd treated the mother of your child with basic human dignity." Marcus lunged for her, though what he planned to do he didn't know. Security grabbed him before he got close. Not mall security, private security that Rebecca had clearly hired for the event. "Don't touch me," Rebecca said quietly. "You gave up that right when you locked me out in the cold." As security escorted Marcus from his own product launch, Rebecca addressed the stunned crowd one final time. "Chen Innovations' software platform is actually quite good. The company has potential. But it needs new leadership. If you're interested in investing, I suggest you wait approximately 90 days. There will be significant changes to the corporate structure." She handed the microphone to a confused technician. "Thank you all for coming." The aftermath was spectacular. Tech blogs published the story within hours. Billionaire heiress crashes ex-husband's event competed with CEO accused of abandoning pregnant wife at mall he didn't know she owned. Chen Innovations stock price, it had gone public 6 months earlier, dropped 37% in 2 days. 3 major investors pulled out. 2 board members resigned. Marcus tried to fight back through lawyers, but every angle was blocked. The prenup he thought was airtight? It was based on fraudulent assumptions about Rebecca's financial situation. Their divorce attorney, whom Rebecca had retained, was the most expensive in the state. Sophia left him after a week, posting on Instagram about supporting women and learning from mistakes. She got a job at a nonprofit, carefully rehabilitating her image. Marcus was forced out as CEO within 90 days, exactly as Rebecca had predicted. Morrison Properties' investment stake had grown to 48% through strategic purchases, and with allied investors, Rebecca controlled the board. The new CEO was a woman named Patricia Flores, known for turning around struggling tech companies with both competence and integrity. "Will you keep the company?" Patricia asked Rebecca during their first board meeting. "For now," Rebecca replied. "It's profitable, and the employees deserve stability. But I'm thinking about long-term strategy. This company could do a lot of good if it's run by people who actually care about more than just money." 6 months after the product launch, Rebecca stood in her mother's library, now her library, in the Morrison family estate. The house had sat empty for years, maintained by a trust but unused while Charlotte Morrison lived modestly to protect her daughter's future. Now Rebecca was home, with baby Charlotte sleeping upstairs and her entire life reorganized around the empire her mother had built. Diane visited weekly, still amazed by the transformation. "Do you ever regret it? Not knowing about the money sooner?" "No," Rebecca said honestly. "Mom was right. I needed to know who Marcus really was. If I'd known about the inheritance, I never would have seen his true nature. And now? Now I'm building something Charlotte would be proud of." Rebecca pulled up plans on her laptop. Morrison Properties is funding a new initiative, affordable childcare centers in all 47 shopping centers. Free for retail workers, subsidized for everyone else. That's incredible. It's what Mom would have done. Rebecca smiled. She always said the point of money wasn't to have it, it was to use it for something that mattered. Marcus Chen eventually rebuilt a smaller company in Austin, away from the spotlight. He had supervised visitation with Charlotte twice a month, which he usually rescheduled or canceled. His daughter would grow up knowing her father existed, but not needing him. Rebecca never remarried, though she dated occasionally. She was too busy running an empire, raising her daughter, and proving that Charlotte Morrison's faith in her had been well placed. And every time she walked through Riverside Galleria, her mall, her mother's legacy, she remembered that November night when Marcus had abandoned her there. She remembered standing in the cold, scared and alone, thinking she had nothing. She'd had everything. She just hadn't known it yet. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't destruction. Sometimes it was simply becoming so powerful that the person who hurt you became irrelevant. Marcus Chen had tried to discard her like trash. Instead, Rebecca Morrison had taken everything he valued and made it hers. His company, his reputation, his future, all of it now shaped by the woman he'd underestimated. As Charlotte would have said, never bet against a Morrison woman. They always win.